Captain Eva Rostova pulled at the collar of her Terran Alliance uniform, trying to ease the stiffness that came with the newly issued exofabric. 6 months into commanding the exploration vessel Odyssey, and the uniform still felt like an ill-fitting second skin. Perhaps it wasn't the uniform itself, but rather what it represented: humanity's conditional acceptance into the galactic concord, a tenuous position earned after decades of careful diplomacy. "Status report, Lieutenant Patel?" Eva asked, her voice steady despite the flutter of anticipation in her chest. Today marked the official commencement of operations at the Joint Research Station on Xylos. "All systems nominal, Captain," Patel replied from his station. "The diplomatic team is preparing for final transfer to Xylos Station. Dr. Rivera and the medical team have completed their xenobiological briefing." Eva nodded, surveying the bridge of the Odyssey. Her crew, diverse in specialties from security to engineering to medical sciences, represented the best Earth had to offer. They were well-trained, disciplined, and acutely aware of the stakes of their mission. And the Xylosians? Any communication from Chief Researcher Lyra or Security Commander Kale? Communications Officer Torres glanced up from her console. "They've acknowledged our arrival schedule and transmitted the updated protocol handbook. It's substantially larger than the previous version." Eva sighed. "Of course it is. Forward it to all department heads. I want everyone to review the updates before we dock." The Xylosians, the native species of the planet below, were a technologically advanced race, surpassing humans in many scientific fields. But what they possessed in intellectual capacity, they lacked in physical resilience. Their slender, almost translucent bodies housed extraordinarily sensitive nervous systems and empathic abilities that made them keenly attuned to the emotional and physiological states of others, a trait that had proven both blessing and curse in their interactions with humans. Humans, with their robust bodies, aggressive immunological responses, and evolutionary history as apex predators, were viewed with a mixture of fascination and trepidation by most galactic concord species. But the Xylosians regarded them with particular caution. The diplomatic incident 3 years ago, when a human diplomat's sudden laughter had triggered a panic response in a Xylosian delegation, had nearly derailed the alliance before it began. "Captain," Torres called, "incoming transmission from Xylos Station. It's Chief Researcher Lyra." On screen, Eva ordered, straightening her posture and composing her facial features into the neutral expression mandated by Xylosian interaction protocols. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the ethereal features of a Xylosian. Lyra's large, iridescent eyes dominated a face of delicate angles, her skin a pale lavender that seemed to shimmer slightly with each careful movement. "Captain Rostova," Lyra's voice was melodic, precisely modulated. "I trust your journey to our world was uneventful." "Perfectly routine, Chief Researcher," Eva replied with measured politeness. "My crew is prepared for transfer to the station. We have reviewed the core protocols and are currently studying the updates you've provided." Lyra's head tilted in what Eva recognized as a sign of approval. "Excellence in preparation speaks to disciplined minds. We appreciate this quality in our human colleagues." The Xylosian paused, her eyes shifting slightly as if searching for the right words. "I must inform you that Security Commander Kale has implemented additional security measures for the initial integration period. These are precautionary only." Eva caught the unspoken meaning. Kale, notorious for his rigid adherence to regulation and deep skepticism of humans, was hedging his bets. "We understand, Chief Researcher. Security measures protect all parties. My security team has been thoroughly briefed on compliance procedures." "Yes, compliance." Lyra's expression remained unreadable to human eyes. "There is one more matter, Captain. The biolab in Section 7 has been designated as a restricted area for the first lunar cycle. The research there is sensitive." "Understood. I'll ensure my crew is informed." The transmission ended with the customary Xylosian farewell, a slight dipping of the head that Eva and her bridge crew returned carefully. Lieutenant Commander Marcus, her security chief, raised an eyebrow. Restricted areas on day one? That's not in the cooperation charter. Neither is questioning our host's security protocols, Eva replied, though privately she shared his concern. The Terran Alliance had fought hard for transparency provisions in the research agreement. We'll follow procedure for now. Dr. Rivera, is your team prepared for the enhanced medical screening Kale will undoubtedly insist upon? Dr. Sophia Rivera, the Odyssey's chief medical officer, nodded firmly. We've practiced the decontamination procedures twice. My team knows to maintain physical and emotional distance from Xylosian medical personnel. And yes, we've memorized the 27 prohibited facial expressions. Good, Eva said, rising from her command chair. Because like it or not, humanity's place in the Galactic Concord depends on proving we're more than the volatile warrior species they believe us to be. Torres suddenly straightened at her station, her hand flying to her earpiece. Captain, emergency transmission from Xylos Station. Multiple alarms triggering in the biology sector. Eva felt her muscles tense. Details? Unclear. Station communications are garbled. I'm detecting containment breach protocols being initiated in Section 7. That's the restricted biolab Lyra just mentioned. Life signs, Eva demanded. Readings indicate both human and Xylosian biosignatures in the affected area, but there's interference. Station emergency systems are activating, but something's disrupting the automated response protocols. Eva made her decision instantly. Alert Dr. Rivera's medical team. Full emergency protocol. Marcus, assemble a security detail with non-lethal countermeasures only. Torres, inform Xylosian Command we're responding to their emergency with a joint human-Xylosian rescue operation. Captain, Marcus cautioned, entering a restricted area without explicit. Lives are at risk, Commander. Xylosian and human. Eva cut him off. If they wanted to keep us out completely, they should have stationed the research facility on the other side of the planet. Ready the shuttle. Departure in 10 minutes. As the bridge erupted into efficient activity, Eva allowed herself one moment of unguarded concern. First day of operations, and already facing a crisis in a lab designated as off-limits. Whatever waited for them on the station, it would test more than their emergency procedures. It would test the fragile trust they'd worked so hard to build. The approach to Xylos Station revealed little of the emergency within. The gleaming structure, a marvel of joint human-Xylosian engineering, orbited the azure planet like a silver sentinel. Only the rhythmic flashing of amber alert beacons suggested anything amiss. Eva led her team through the primary docking port, where they were met not by the expected full security contingent, but by a visibly agitated Commander Kale accompanied by only 2 Xylosian security officers. Kale was taller than Lyra and most Xylosians Eva had encountered, his pale, blue skin drawn tight over angular features, giving him a perpetually stern appearance. His uniform, a flowing garment of iridescent material that seemed to shift with his movements, bore insignia that Eva recognized as denoting his high rank in the Xylosian Security Directorate. Captain Rostova, Kale's voice carried none of Lyra's melodic quality, instead clipped and precise. Your offer of assistance is acknowledged, but this is an internal security matter that... Commander, Eva interrupted, careful to keep her tone neutral despite the urgency she felt. Our sensors indicate both human and Xylosian life signs in the affected area. The research charter explicitly grants emergency response rights to both parties in situations involving joint personnel. Kale's large eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. I am aware of the charter provisions, Captain. However, the nature of the research in Biolab 7 is classified under Galactic Concord security directives. With respect, Commander, those directives don't supersede the safety protocols for personnel. Eva held his gaze, maintaining the exact duration of eye contact permitted under Xylosian cultural norms, neither challenging nor submissive. My team is equipped for rescue operations only. Dr. Rivera's medical expertise could prove valuable to your injured. A moment of tension stretched between them, broken by the arrival of Lyra, who moved with the characteristic fluid grace of her species despite evident distress. Commander Kale, Lyra addressed her compatriot first, as protocol demanded. I have reviewed the emergency protocols. Captain Rostova is correct. The human medical team's specialized trauma training would be beneficial, particularly given Dr. Nuren's injuries. Kale seemed to vibrate with contained conflict, his natural caution warring with practical necessity. Very well, he conceded finally. A joint team. Minimal personnel. Your security officers will surrender all energy weapons and submit to our scanning protocols. Agreed. Eva nodded, signaling Marcus to comply. My security team will carry standard emergency equipment only. As the Xylosian security officers conducted their scans of the human team, Eva noted the station's eerily quiet corridors. Evacuation protocol? She asked Lyra. Yes, the Xylosian researcher confirmed. All non-essential personnel have been moved to secure zones. Station communications are functioning at reduced capacity due to a power surge that accompanied the incident. The nature of the incident? Dr. Rivera inquired, her medical kit already in hand. Lyra and Kale exchanged a glance that needed no translation across species barriers. Uncertainty. Unknown, Kale admitted reluctantly. Initial reports indicated an explosion in the secondary containment area, followed by the release of an unidentified compound. Communication was lost with the lab team approximately 37 minutes ago. Security feeds? Marcus asked. Compromised, Kale replied. The last clear images show both Dr. Nuren and two human researchers, Drs. Abernathy and Lakshmi, working with a series of biological samples when an equipment malfunction occurred. Eva processed this information, her mind already mapping potential scenarios. Survivors. Life sign monitors indicate 7 individuals still present in the lab and adjacent areas, 3 Xylosian for human. But their conditions are unclear and the readings are erratic. Then we should move quickly, Eva decided. Commander Kale, lead the way. The journey to Biolab 7 took them through 3 security checkpoints, each requiring Kale's biometric authorization. Eva noted the progressive increase in security measures, far more extensive than those detailed in the station schematics shared with the Terran Alliance. This level of security seems excessive for a standard research facility, she observed carefully. The research is not standard, Kale replied without elaboration. As they passed through the final checkpoint, the pristine corridors gave way to visible signs of damage, scorched wall panels, emergency lighting casting ominous shadows, and a thin haze that the environmental systems were struggling to clear. Atmospheric composition? Dr. Rivera asked, preparing respirators for her team. Our sensors detect elevated levels of organic compounds, Lyra answered. Nothing immediately toxic to either species, but caution is advised. Eva noticed how the Xylosians' movements became increasingly hesitant as they approached the damaged section, their natural sensitivity to environmental changes clearly registering discomfort. The lab entrance is just ahead, Kale indicated, his voice lower now. Be advised that the inner containment doors appear to have been compromised. As they rounded the final corner, the full extent of the damage became apparent. The main entrance to Biolab 7 stood partially open, its reinforced doors bent outward, as if from an internal blast. The corridor leading to it bore scorch marks and what appeared to be impact damage from flying debris. This wasn't just an equipment malfunction, Marcus muttered, his trained eye assessing the destruction. Agreed, Eva replied quietly. This looks deliberate. Kale overheard this exchange, his posture stiffening. You suggest sabotage? By whom? I'm making no accusations, Eva clarified quickly. But in my experience, standard lab accidents don't produce damage patterns this concentrated or directional. Before Kale could respond, a weak cry emanated from within the lab, a distinctly human sound of pain. Dr. Rivera moved forward instinctively, but Kale raised a hand. We must proceed with established protocol. The environment beyond may contain unknown biohazards. Someone is injured in there, Dr. Rivera countered, her professional instincts clearly challenged by the delay. And we will reach them, Eva intervened, following proper procedure to ensure we don't create more casualties. Dr. Rivera, prepare your team for potential biohazard exposure. Commander Marcus, establish a secure perimeter. Commander Kale, what are your standard emergency entry procedures for this lab? The methodical approach seemed to reassure Kale, who activated his communication device. Security team to deploy remote sensors into the Biolab 7. Full spectrum analysis. Small drone-like devices emerge from specialized compartments in the Xylosian security officer's equipment, hovering forward to enter the damaged lab. The sensor feeds appeared on Kale's portable display, revealing the chaotic interior. Equipment lay shattered across the lab floor. Near what appeared to be a central research station, a human figure was visible, slumped against the console. Further in, partially obscured by damaged equipment, two more forms, one human, one Xylosian, appear to be moving slightly. Life signs confirmed, Lyra announced, reviewing the sensor data. But there's significant interference in the deeper sections of the lab. That's enough for initial entry, Eva decided. Commander Kale, your team has primary authority, but we need to move now. With evident reluctance, Kale signaled his approval. First response team only. Maintain communication at all times. Eva, Dr. Rivera, one of Rivera's medical assistants, Kale, Lyra, and two Xylosian. Security officers formed the entry team, leaving Marcus and the remainder of both security teams to secure the perimeter and prepare for potential evacuation. The interior of the lab assaulted their senses immediately. The acrid smell of burned synthetics mingled with the distinctive copper tang of human blood and the faint, almost floral scent that Eva recognized as the Xylosian equivalent. Emergency lighting cast everything in a ghostly blue glow, interrupted by sparking equipment and flashing warning signals on still-functioning consoles. Dr. Rivera moved immediately to the nearest casualty, a human male slumped against a workstation, a deep laceration evident on his forehead, blood streaming down his face. Dr. Abernathy, Lyra, identified him, her voice tight with what Eva recognized as the Xylosian version of distress. He's alive, Rivera confirmed, quickly assessing his injuries. Concussion, multiple lacerations, possible internal injuries from a blast. We need to stabilize him for transport. Kale's attention had shifted to a partially collapsed section of laboratory equipment. There, he indicated, two more life signs. Eva followed his gesture, spotting movement beneath the debris. We need to clear that wreckage, she said, already moving forward. Together with one of the Xylosian security officers, Eva began carefully removing the twisted remains of what appeared to be an analytical device. As they lifted a heavy section, they revealed the forms of a female human researcher and a Xylosian scientist, the latter's delicate frame protectively covered by the human's sturdier one. Dr. Lakshmi, Rivera identified the human as she hurried over, and that appears to be Dr. Nurin beneath her. As they gently separated the two, it became clear that Dr. Lakshmi had thrown herself over the Xylosian scientist when the explosion occurred. The human researcher was conscious but dazed, her lab coat torn and singed, while Dr. Nurin appeared unconscious, a viscous lavender fluid, Xylosian blood, seeping from a wound in his abdomen. Dr. Nurin requires immediate attention, Lyra stated, her voice carrying an unusual tremor. His physiological readings indicate severe shock. Rivera handed care of Dr. Abernathy to her assistant and moved to assess the Xylosian scientist. I'll need your guidance on Xylosian physiology, she said to Lyra. I understand your species' sensitivity to physical contact. In this case, necessity overrides cultural protocol, Lyra replied, kneeling beside Rivera. His thoracic membrane appears compromised. As the medical team worked on the injured, Eva and Kale continued their assessment of the lab, both drawn to the innermost section where the blast appeared to have originated. The containment chamber, Kale identified the reinforced enclosure, now breached. It housed the most sensitive aspects of the research. Which was? Eva pressed. Kale hesitated before answering. Comparative xenobiological studies. specifically adaptive response mechanisms in various species. Eva frowned, noting the sophisticated equipment surrounding the chamber, far more advanced than necessary for standard comparative biology. Commander, if we're going to identify what happened here and whether there are ongoing risks, I need complete information. Their conversation was interrupted by Rivera's urgent call. Captain, Dr. Nuren's condition is deteriorating rapidly. We need to move him to the medical bay immediately. Eva turned back toward the medical team, but as she did, a movement caught her eye, a shadow shifting in the recesses of the damaged containment chamber. Commander Kale, she said quietly, I believe we're not alone. Kale followed her gaze, his hand moving to his sidearm. Impossible. The sensor scan showed only the 7 life signs we've accounted for. Yet as they watched, the shadow moved again, more deliberately this time. Something or someone concealing themselves in the darkness beyond the ruined equipment. Security alert. Kale murmured into his communication device. Possible intruder in the primary containment area. The lab's damaged lighting flickered, momentarily plunging the space into darkness before the emergency systems compensated. In that brief moment of blackness, Eva heard a distinct sound. The scrabble of movement followed by the hiss of an access panel opening. They're using the maintenance conduits, she realized aloud. Heading toward the secondary exit, Kale immediately dispatched his security team to intercept, but Eva's instincts told her they would be too late. Whoever had been hiding had timed their escape perfectly, using the distraction of the injured to slip away. We need to focus on the wounded, Eva decided, turning back to the medical crisis at hand. But seal the entire section. Nobody leaves without full clearance. Dr. Rivera had established an emergency medical area, converting a relatively undamaged workstation into a treatment space. Dr. Abernathy was now conscious, though clearly disoriented, while Dr. Lakshmi sat nearby, being treated by Rivera's assistant. Dr. Nuren, however, lay unervingly still as Rivera and Lyra worked over him with increasing urgency. Eva approached, careful not to disrupt their work. Status. Critical, Rivera replied without looking up, her hands steady as she administered a Xylosion-compatible stabilizing agent. The blast caused significant trauma to his thoracic system. But there's something else. She hesitated, glancing at Lyra. The Xylosion researcher's normally composed features showed clear distress. His biochemical readings are abnormal. The compound released in the explosion appears to be interacting with his system in unexpected ways. A chemical weapon? Eva asked sharply. Unknown, Lyra replied. But his cellular structure is showing signs of rapid degradation that cannot be explained by physical trauma alone. As they spoke, Dr. Abernathy struggled to sit upright, his voice hoarse but urgent. It wasn't supposed to do that, he managed. Eva turned to him. What wasn't, Dr. Abernathy? What was happening in this lab? The hybridization experiment. He coughed, blood speckling his lips. Cross-species resistance factors. We were trying to integrate human adaptive immune responses with Xylosion neurological processing speed. Eva felt a chill despite the lab's rising temperature. Such research skirted dangerously close to prohibited genetic experimentation under Galactic Concord law. The sample wasn't supposed to be volatile, Abernathy continued weakly. Someone altered the containment parameters, deliberately sabotaged. His words trailed off as his condition suddenly deteriorated, his body convulsing. He's going into shock, Rivera announced, immediately redirecting her attention from Dr. Nuren to Abernathy. Cardiac irregularities. I need the crash kit. The next moments passed in a blur of urgent medical intervention. The air grew thick with the metallic scent of human blood as Abernathy's wound reopened during his convulsions. Rivera worked frantically to stabilize him, her movements precise despite the chaos. It was in this moment of crisis that Eva felt a shift, a subtle but profound change in her own physiological state. The copper-rich scent of blood triggered an ancient, hardwired response. Her pupils dilated, her posture subtly altered, her attention sharpened to laser focus. Around her, the other humans on the team experienced the same involuntary reaction, an evolutionary response honed through millennia as predators, now manifesting as heightened alertness in a crisis. But what was merely an unconscious biological response for the humans had an immediate and dramatic effect on the Xylosians present. Lyra, who had been assisting Rivera, suddenly froze, her iridescent eyes widening in unmistakable terror. Kale, returning from dispatching his security team, literally stumbled backward, his hand flying to his weapon. There, transforming, one of the Xylosian security officers whispered, horror evident in his voice. Eva realized with sudden clarity what was happening. The Xylosians, with their highly evolved empathic senses, were detecting the human's physiological shift, the pupil dilation, the subtle changes in stance and breathing, the rush of adrenaline. But they were interpreting these changes through the lens of their own deeply held fears about humanity's predatory nature. Wait, Eva said carefully, raising her hands in a universal gesture of peace. This is a natural human response. We're not a threat. But Kale had already drawn his weapon, aiming it not at Eva specifically, but at the human medical team working over the bleeding Abernathy. Stand back from the wounded, he ordered, his voice tight with controlled panic. Your biological response patterns indicate aggressive intent. Commander Kale. Eva kept her voice deliberately calm, fighting against her body's natural instinct to tense further in response to the threat. What you're seeing is an involuntary human response to emergency situations. Our pupils dilate to gather more visual information. Our posture changes to prepare for rapid action if needed. These are autonomic responses that increase our effectiveness in a crisis. We are not becoming aggressive. We're becoming more focused to help. Kale's weapon didn't waver. The biochemical signatures your bodies are now producing match precisely with pre-attack patterns documented in human combat situations. Because they're the same systems, Rivera interjected, her hands still working steadily despite the weapon pointed in her direction. Our bodies don't distinguish between preparing to fight and preparing to save a life. The physiological cascade is identical, but the intent and outcome are entirely different. Eva saw Lyra's terror begin to give way to confusion and scientific curiosity, even as she remained frozen in place. Is this accurate? Lyra asked Kale. Could we be misinterpreting? We cannot take the risk, Kale insisted. Their own historical records document how the scent of blood can trigger predatory frenzy in their species. That's a fundamental misunderstanding, Eva countered carefully. Yes, human history contains violence, but what you're seeing now is our emergency response system. The same system that lets a human lift impossible weights to save a child trapped under debris or remain calm during disasters. Dr. Rivera isn't experiencing bloodlust. She's experiencing heightened focus to save lives. As if to punctuate her point, the medical monitors attached to Dr. Nurin suddenly emitted a warning tone, indicating further deterioration in his condition. He's going into systemic failure, Rivera announced. I need to treat him immediately, or he won't survive. The moment hung in perfect tension. Human lives and Xylosian lives balanced on Kale's decision. Eva could see the conflict in his alien features, the deeply ingrained fear warring with the evidence before him. It was Lyra who broke the impasse. Commander Kale, she said, her voice gaining strength. Observe Dr. Rivera's actions, not just her biological responses. She has been exposed to human blood, a supposed trigger, yet she is attempting to save Dr. Nurin, not harm him. Almost imperceptibly, Kale's weapon lowered slightly. Proceed, he said finally to Rivera, but slowly. Any sudden movements will be interpreted as hostile. Rivera didn't waste time acknowledging the permission, immediately returning her full attention to Dr. Nurin. I need more light here, she instructed her assistant, who carefully adjusted the emergency lamp. Eva remained perfectly still, allowing Kale to maintain the illusion of control while Rivera worked. Her attention, however, had shifted partially to Dr. Lakshmi, who had been attempting to access a damaged terminal throughout the confrontation. Captain, Lakshmi called softly. I've managed to recover some of the security footage from before the explosion. You need to see this. Moving with deliberate slowness, Eva approached the terminal, aware of Kale mirroring her movements, his weapon still at ready. The damaged screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage of the lab from approximately an hour earlier. The timestamp indicated it was roughly 20 minutes before the explosion. The recording showed the research team, Abernathy, Lakshmi, and Nurin, working normally when a fourth figure entered the lab. The newcomer wore standard station scientific clothing, but their movements as they approached the containment area seemed oddly purposeful. That's not authorized personnel, Lakshmi confirmed weakly. I didn't recognize them at the time, assumed they were from the night shift team. But they accessed the containment protocols and made adjustments. The footage showed the unknown figure manipulating controls at an auxiliary station before quietly exiting the lab. 17 minutes later, the recording erupted into static as the explosion occurred. They sabotaged the containment field, Eva stated. Deliberately set it to fail and release whatever you were working on. Kale had moved closer, his attention captured by the recording. The intruder's movements, they're not consistent with either human or Xylosian biomechanics. Eva noticed it too, a subtle but distinct difference in how the figure moved, something that would be easily missed by casual observation but obvious to trained security personnel. A third species, she concluded, disguised to pass as either human or Xylosian at a distance. But why? Lyra questioned, having cautiously approached to view the recording. What could they hope to gain by sabotaging this research? Before anyone could speculate further, Rivera's urgent voice cut through their discussion. I've stabilized Dr. Nurin temporarily, but both he and Dr. Abernathy need advanced medical care immediately. Whatever was released is causing progressive cellular degradation in both species, though it's affecting them differently. Eva made an immediate decision. Commander Kale, we need to evacuate the wounded to the main medical bay and secure this lab as a crime scene. The saboteur may still be on the station. Kale hesitated only briefly before nodding in agreement. I will alert station security to search for the intruder. He paused, then added with evident difficulty, your medical officer's intervention appears to have been beneficial. It wasn't quite an apology for the earlier confrontation, but Eva recognized it as significant coming from him. Thank you, Commander. I suggest we combine our security teams for the evacuation. The saboteur has already demonstrated willingness to harm both our species. As they organized the evacuation, Eva noticed Lyra approaching Dr. Rivera, who was preparing the injured for transport. Your pupils, Lyra observed cautiously. They remain dilated, yet your actions have been consistently protective, not aggressive. Rivera glanced up briefly from her work. It's an automatic physical response, like your species' bioluminescent reaction to emotional states. The difference is that we have conscious control over what we do with that heightened state. Lyra seemed to absorb this information, her head tilting in the Xylosian gesture of contemplation. Our historical and scientific understanding of human physiology may be incomplete, or perhaps filtered through fear rather than objective analysis, Eva suggested, joining their conversation. Just as many humans misunderstand your species' emotional sensitivity as weakness, when it's actually a sophisticated form of communication. A commotion at the lab entrance interrupted their discussion. Marcus had returned with urgent news. Captain, station security has detected an unauthorized access to Docking Bay 3. Someone's attempting to launch a maintenance craft. Kale immediately accessed his security feed, confirming the alert. Containment protocols activated. All docking bays locked down. The holographic display showed a small craft already detaching from a station, maneuvering rapidly away. They bypassed the lockdown, Kale stated, disbelief evident in his voice. That's impossible without command-level authentication. Unless they had help, Eva concluded grimly. Or the sabotage was planned well in advance with detailed knowledge of station systems. Kale's communication device chimed with an incoming alert. Security teams report the craft is on an intercept course with a vessel that just dropped out of FDL at the edge of the system. Unidentified configuration. Eva made a split-second decision. Contact the Odyssey. Have them pursue the escaping craft and identify the rendezvous vessel. That would violate Xylosian territorial, Kale began. Commander, Eva cut him off firmly. We have a saboteur escaping with potentially catastrophic biological agents, heading toward an unknown vessel. This is no longer about protocols. It's about preventing a possible biological attack that could affect both our species. Their gazes locked in a moment of tension before Kale nodded sharply. Approved. But Xylosian defense vessels will accompany your ship. Agreed. Eva immediately contacted the Odyssey, issuing rapid orders for pursuit while the evacuation of the wounded continued around them. In the midst of this new crisis, Eva noticed that Kale had holstered his weapon completely, a small but significant indication that the immediate fear of human predatory response had been at least temporarily set aside in favor of cooperation against a common threat. Hours later, the combined medical teams of the station and the Odyssey had stabilized all the wounded. The saboteur's escape craft had been disabled by the Odyssey before it could reach the mysterious vessel, which had immediately jumped back into FTL travel upon detecting pursuit. Eva stood in the station's medical observation room, watching through a transparent barrier as Dr. Rivera continued her treatment of Dr. Nurin, working alongside Xylosian medical personnel with a carefully choreographed precision that minimized physical contact while maximizing efficiency. She saved his life, Lyra said quietly, having approached without even noticing. The Xylosian medical team was hesitant to implement the necessary procedures, given the unusual nature of the contamination. Dr. Rivera acted without such hesitation. That's who she is, Eva replied simply. Who we try to be at our best. Lyra's large eyes studied Eva with evident curiosity. When you saw Dr. Abernathy bleeding, your pupils dilated by 42% within 1.7 seconds. Our scientific understanding classifies this as a predatory response pattern. Yet your actions were protective, not aggressive. Eva considered how to explain. Human biology is complex. The same physical responses that once helped us hunt can also help us protect and heal. The difference lies not in the response itself, but in the choices we make about how to use it. A dangerous duality, Lyra observed. Perhaps, Eva acknowledged. Or perhaps a reminder that biology isn't destiny. The same hands that can form a fist can also perform surgery or create art. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Kale, his usual rigid posture slightly relaxed by what Eva suspected was exhaustion. The preliminary analysis of the saboteur's craft is complete, he reported. The technology is consistent with Navorian design, though deliberately obscured. Eva frowned. The Navorians, a reclusive species known for their advanced biotech and complicated relationship with the Galactic Concord, had long opposed human inclusion in galactic affairs. Do we know what they were after? The research itself, most likely, Lyra suggested. The work on cross-species immunity factors could have significant implications for various biological applications, both beneficial and otherwise, and creating an incident that resulted in humans displaying predatory reactions around Xylosians would have political advantages for those opposing our continued cooperation. Eva added, the pieces falling into place. Kale's expression remained unreadable, but his next words surprised her. You controlled yourselves. Despite biochemical cascades that our science has always associated with aggression, despite weapons pointed at you, despite clear threat signals, you prioritized saving Dr. Nurin over your own safety. It wasn't quite an admission of error, but Eva recognized the significant concession in his statement. That's what civilization means, Commander. Not the absence of instinct, but the choice of how we respond to it. Perhaps, Kale acknowledged reluctantly, though I must note that many in our populace will not be reassured by philosophical distinctions when confronted with the physical reality of human physiological responses. Change takes time, Eva conceded. For both our species. Lyra, who had been listening to this exchange with evident interest, interjected. The research must continue. despite this setback. Perhaps with additional understanding of the biological interfaces between our species, we can better interpret these physiological responses in their proper context. A scientific approach to mutual understanding, Eva agreed. Though I suspect the Galactic Concord will demand a full investigation before authorizing continuation of this research. 2 days later, with the immediate crisis contained and the injured stabilized, Eva found herself in the station's central conference room, facing a joint inquiry panel. Representatives from both the Terran Alliance and the Xylosian High Council were present, along with a stern-faced Galactic Concord official whose species Eva recognized as Aldarian, known for their strict adherence to regulatory frameworks. This incident represents a significant breach of security protocols, the Aldarian official stated, their multiple eye stalks swiveling to focus on both Eva and Kale. Unauthorized research into cross-species genetic integration, sabotage by a suspected Navorian agent, and a near-diplomatic incident when human physiological responses were misinterpreted as aggressive intent. Eva maintained her composure, aware that her response would be scrutinized not just for content, but for any dangerous physical cues. With respect, Director Thalon, the research project had received preliminary approval from both our governments. The security breach was the result of external sabotage, not internal negligence. And as for the misinterpretation of human responses, that represents precisely why such joint research is necessary. Kale, seated across from her, surprised Eva by nodding slightly. Captain Rostova's assessment is accurate. While security protocols will require significant enhancement, the incident with the human physiological response was educational. Director Thalen's eye stalks quivered in what Eva had learned indicated skepticism. Educational? Commander Kale, your preliminary report indicated you drew your weapon on the human medical team because you perceive their dilated pupils as a precursor to violence. I did, Kale acknowledged without defensiveness. Based on our established understanding of human biology, that understanding proved incomplete. What Commander Kale is too diplomatic to say, Lyra interjected, having been called as a scientific witness, is that much of our species' understanding of human physiology has been filtered through cultural bias rather than objective analysis. The same biological response we interpreted as bloodlust was in fact focused attention directed towards saving lives, including Xylosian lives. The Terran Alliance representative, Admiral Chenwei, leaned forward. This is precisely why the Alliance has advocated for more integrated research and cultural exchange programs. Misunderstandings of biological and cultural differences remain the greatest threat to stable interspecies relations. Eva noticed how the mention of threat caused a subtle ripple of discomfort among the Xylosian representatives, a reminder of how deeply ingrained their caution toward humans remained. Director Thalen's expression remained unreadable. The Galactic Concord acknowledges the potential benefits of greater understanding. However, the fact remains that restricted biological research was being conducted, and the sabotage suggests the possibility of weapons development. Not weapons, Dr. Rivera corrected firmly. She had been called to provide medical testimony. The research focused on combining Xylosian neurological efficiency with human adaptive immune responses. The potential applications were entirely medical, treatment for degenerative neural conditions, and improved immune therapies. Then why the extreme security measures? Thalon countered. Why the restricted access? Kale and Lyra exchanged glances before Kale responded. Because we anticipated exactly this reaction, Director. Research involving human biological systems remains controversial within certain sectors of galactic society. The security was as much to protect the research from political interference as from external threats. The hearing continued for several hours, delving into technical details of the research, the security breach, and the response protocols. Throughout, Eva noted a subtle but significant shift in the dynamic between the human and Xylosian representatives. Still cautious, still formal, but with moments of genuine engagement that had been absent in previous interactions. When they finally adjourned for the day, Eva found herself walking alongside Kale down one of the station's curved corridors, the vast expanse of Xylos visible through the transparent sections. Your testimony was unexpectedly supportive, Eva observed carefully. Kale maintained his gaze forward. I testified to what I observed. Your medical officer saved Dr. Nuren's life while my weapon was pointed at her. That fact cannot be dismissed, regardless of my preconceptions. Speaking of Dr. Nuren, how is his recovery progressing? Well, Kale replied, with what might have been the faintest hint of warmth. The treatment protocol Dr. Rivera developed has proven effective at counteracting the sabotage compound. He has requested permission to continue working with her on understanding the mechanism of action. They walked in silence for a moment before Kale spoke again, his voice measured. I must ask you something, Captain Rostova. When your pupils dilated and your stance shifted in response to the crisis, what did you feel? The question surprised Eva with its directness, unusual for Xylosians, who typically approached sensitive topics with layers of polite circumlocution. Focus, Eva answered honestly. Clarity, a heightened awareness of everyone in the room, every potential threat and solution. It's like the non-essential falls away, and only what matters remains. Not aggression, not the desire to harm. No, Eva said firmly. The physiological response is neutral. It's the context and our conscious choices that determine whether it becomes protective or aggressive. Kale made the subtle head tilt that Eva had come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. An interesting perspective. In Xylosian biology, our physiological responses are more directly aligned with their purpose. When our chromatophores shift to warning patterns, it is always because we feel threatened. When our resonance glands activate, it is always for communication. The idea of a biological response that can serve multiple, even opposing purposes, is unsettling to us. Different evolutionary paths, Eva suggested. Your species developed high sensitivity and empathic abilities. Mine developed adaptability and resilience. A dangerous combination, Kale observed, echoing Lyra's earlier comment. Or a complementary one, Eva countered. If we can move beyond fear to understanding. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from Kale's communication device. After reviewing the message, his posture became noticeably more rigid. The saboteur has regained consciousness in the detention center. Initial biometric scans confirm Navorian physiology, though genetic markers indicate extensive modification. Has he said anything about his mission objectives, or who sent him? Not yet. The Galactic Concord has dispatched a specialized interrogation team. Kale hesitated before adding, Your presence has been requested during the initial questioning as the representative of human interests in this matter. Eva raised an eyebrow. That's unexpected. Director Thalon specified that a human witness should be present to ensure that any discussion of the biological research and its implications is accurately represented. He paused. I believe there is concern that some parties may attempt to use this incident to restrict human participation in certain fields of research. Politics, Eva sighed. Even in the face of what was clearly an attempt to disrupt cooperation between our species. Perhaps especially because of that, Kale observed with unexpected insight. There are factions within galactic society that benefit from continued suspicion between humans and other species. Your inclusion in the Galactic Concord remains controversial. Eva was struck by the frankness of his assessment, a level of political candor Kale had never previously displayed with her. And where do you stand on that controversy, Commander? Kale was silent for several steps before responding. 3 days ago, I would have advocated for stricter limitations on human involvement in sensitive research. Today, he left the thought unfinished, but his meaning was clear. Progress, Eva acknowledged with a slight smile. Observation, Kale corrected, though without his usual sharpness. I remain cautious about human unpredictability, but I cannot dismiss the evidence of my own experience. They reached the junction where their paths would diverge. Kale to Security Command, Eva to the Odyssey for her daily briefing with her crew. The interrogation will begin at 0800 station time tomorrow. Kale informed her formally. I suggest bringing your security chief, Commander Marcus. Thank you, Commander. We'll be there. As Eva headed toward the docking bay where her shuttle waited, she found herself reflecting on the paradoxical nature of the crisis they had weathered. An attempt to drive humans and Xylosians apart had, instead, created the first real opportunity for understanding beyond diplomatic pleasantries and regulated interactions. Back aboard the Odyssey, Eva found Dr. Rivera in the ship's medical bay, reviewing data on Dr. Nuren's continuing treatment. How's our patient? Eva asked, approaching the holographic display of Xylosian physiology that dominated the center of the room. Recovering well, Rivera replied, her focus still on the display. Their cellular regeneration capacity is remarkable once properly directed. The contamination caused an autoimmune-like response, but we've managed to reset their equivalent of T cells to recognize it as foreign. And the human casualties? Dr. Abernathy has been stabilized. Dr. Lakshmi suffered only minor injuries and has already been released to light duty. Rivera finally looked up from her work, fatigue evident in her features. The Xylosian medical team has been surprisingly cooperative since the incident. They've shared detailed physiological data that wasn't in any of our briefing materials. Near-death experiences have a way of reprioritizing concerns, Eva observed. Their caution around humans has deep cultural roots, but saving their colleagues' lives made an impression. Rivera's expression turned thoughtful. It's ironic, really. They were terrified by our physiological response to crisis, the very response that helped save their people. Fear of the unfamiliar is universal, Eva said. And to be fair, human history gives some credence to their concerns about our capacity for violence. Violence and protection are two sides of the same coin, Rivera mused. The same traits that make us dangerous can make us effective protectors and healers. It's all about choice. That's essentially what I told Commander Kale, Eva said with a slight smile. Though I doubt one incident will overcome millennia of evolutionary caution. Maybe not, Rivera agreed. But it's a start. Dr. Nuren has already proposed a joint research project specifically studying comparative crisis response physiology between our species. He seems genuinely interested in understanding rather than just cataloging our dangerous traits. The ship's communications system chimed, followed by Lieutenant Patel's voice. Captain, incoming transmission from Galactic Concord headquarters. Priority 1. I'll take it in my ready room, Eva replied, already moving toward the exit. Dr. Rivera, excellent work. Get some rest. I suspect we'll have plenty of reports to file tomorrow. In her ready room, Eva found herself facing the imposing visage of Admiral Karev, the Terran Alliance's senior representative to the Galactic Concord Security Council. Captain Rostova. The Admiral's deep voice resonated through the communications system. I've reviewed the preliminary reports from Xylos Station. A complicated situation, to say the least. Yes, Admiral, though I believe we've stabilized both the medical and diplomatic aspects. Karev's expression remained stern. The Navorian involvement is concerning. This goes beyond simple industrial espionage or research theft. The deliberate attempt to trigger human physiological responses in the presence of Xylosians suggests a more sophisticated psychological operation. Eva hadn't considered this angle. You think the research itself wasn't the primary target? That the sabotage was designed specifically to provoke a confrontation between humans and Xylosians? It's a working theory, Karev confirmed. The Navorians have consistently opposed human integration into galactic society. What better way to reinforce their narrative of human dangerousness than to create a situation where Xylosians, among the most respected and influential species in the Concord, witness humans in an apparently aggressive biological state? The strategic implications sent a chill through Eva. If the Xylosians had reported that humans became aggressive at the scent of blood, exactly, it would have confirmed the worst fears about human nature and potentially set back integration efforts by decades. Karev's expression softened slightly. Your team's response, particularly Dr. Rivera's choice to prioritize saving Xylosian lives despite being under direct threat, likely prevented a significant diplomatic incident. It wasn't a calculated response, Admiral. It was simply who we are at our best. Sometimes the most effective diplomacy is unintentional, Karev observed. The Xylosian Security Directorate has already filed a formal commendation for Dr. Rivera and your security team. Eva couldn't hide her surprise. Commander Kale approved the commendation? Not just approved, he initiated it. That's unprecedented in his service record. The conversation continued with discussions of security protocols and the upcoming interrogation of the Navorian saboteur, but Eva found herself returning to the unexpected news of Kale's commendation. The significance of such a gesture from a Xylosian security commander, particularly one as traditionally cautious around humans as Kale, could not be overstated. The following morning, Eva and Marcus reported to the station's high-security detention level for the interrogation. They were met by Kale, Lyra, and a Galactic Concord specialist whose species Eva didn't immediately recognize. Humanoid in general form, but with distinctive ridged features and skin that seemed to shift subtly in color and texture. Captain Rostova, Commander Marcus, this is Specialist Torm of the Concord Investigation Division. Kale introduced them formally. Torm inclined their head in greeting. Thank you for joining us, Captain. The prisoner has been prepared for questioning according to Concord protocols for Navorian physiology. I should warn you that despite appearing cooperative, Navorians are adept at misdirection and selective disclosure. Understood, Eva acknowledged. What do we know about him so far? His name, or at least the identity he has provided, is Vex Moraine, Lyra explained, consulting a datapad. Genetic analysis confirms Navorian base physiology with significant modifications, some of which appear designed to mask certain biological markers from standard security scans. A professional operative, Marcus commented. Indeed, Kale confirmed. His equipment and the modifications to the escape craft suggest advanced training and substantial resources. This was not the work of a lone actor or criminal enterprise. The detention cell was sparse but comfortable by Concord standards, designed to accommodate the physiological needs of various species without providing any potential tools or materials that might assist in escape. The prisoner sat calmly at a simple table, his features distinctly Navorian, the characteristic high forehead ridges and slightly iridescent skin, but with subtle modifications that Eva suspected were meant to allow him to pass as other species with minimal disguise. Specialist Torm led the questioning, their manner professional but firm. State your full name and affiliation for the record. Vex Moraine, the prisoner replied, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of Navorian speech. Independent Research Acquisition Specialist. A euphemism for corporate espionage, Torm noted. Who commissioned your operation on Xylos Station? Moraine's expression remained neutral. I operate through multiple layers of intermediaries. Client confidentiality is essential in my profession. Your profession resulted in severe injuries to multiple individuals and the deliberate sabotage of a sanctioned research facility, Torm countered. Cooperating now may mitigate the consequences you face under Concord law. Eva watched the exchange carefully, noting the subtle physiological tells that betrayed the Navorians' calculated responses. Slight changes in skin luminescence that her briefing materials had indicated were involuntary reactions similar to human microexpressions. Your mission appeared to have multiple objectives, Eva interjected, drawing Moraine's attention. Not just theft of research data, but the deliberate creation of an incident between humans and Xylosians. A flicker of something, surprise, perhaps, crossed Moraine's features before his expression returned to careful neutrality. An interesting theory, Captain, but my objective was simply to acquire the research data on cross-species immunity factors, a valuable commodity in certain markets. Yet you specifically timed the release of the compound to coincide with the arrival of the human emergency team, Kale observed. And the compound itself was modified to cause bleeding in both species, a factor known to trigger visible physiological responses in humans. Moraine's gaze shifted between them, calculating. You give me too much credit for strategic complexity. The timing was opportunistic, nothing more. The modifications to the compound suggest otherwise, Lyra countered, her scientific expertise evident. They served no purpose in terms of data acquisition, but were perfectly calibrated to create a specific crisis scenario. Eva noticed a subtle shift in Moraine's posture, the Navorian equivalent of discomfort. Specialist Torm had clearly noticed it too, pressing the advantage. "We have analyzed the encryption patterns in your communications device," Torm stated. "They match protocols used by the Navorian Biological Security Directorate, a government agency, not a corporate entity." This elicited a more visible reaction, a ripple of color across Moraine's skin that the briefing materials had identified as stress or alarm. "You misinterpret standard Navorian security algorithms," Moraine countered, but his harmonics had shifted, introducing discordant notes that Eva suspected indicated deception. "I don't think we do," Eva said calmly. "The Navorian government has consistently opposed human integration into galactic society, citing biological incompatibility and security concerns. What better way to reinforce that narrative than to stage an incident where humans appear to display predatory responses in the presence of Xylosians, one of the most influential species in the Concord?" Moraine remained silent, his eyes calculating as he assessed his interrogators. "The sabotage was never about the research itself," Kale continued, building on Eva's theory. "It was about creating a diplomatic incident that would reinforce existing fears about human biology and behavior." Something in Kale's phrasing seemed to amuse Moraine, a faint smile playing across his features. "And yet, Commander, did you not draw your weapon when the human's pupils dilated? Did you not experience the instinctive fear your species has evolved specifically in response to predatory cues?" He turned to Eva. "Your theory may be correct, Captain, but the plan would only work because the fear already exists, because it is justified." The room fell silent at this indirect admission. Eva felt a chill at the calculated nature of the operation, exploiting natural biological responses and cultural fears to drive a wedge between species. Yet it failed, Lyra said unexpectedly, her voice soft but clear. "Because while the human physiological response occurred as you predicted, their actions defied your expectations. They used their predatory focus to save lives, not take them." Moraine's expression shifted to one of genuine curiosity. "An unexpected variable, yes. Human unpredictability remains their most interesting quality." The interrogation continued for several hours, with Moraine gradually revealing more details, though Eva suspected much remained concealed. The operation had indeed been sanctioned by elements within the Navorian government, concerned about the increasing integration of humans into galactic affairs, and particularly alarmed by research that might enhance human biological capabilities with alien traits. When they finally concluded for the day, Eva found herself walking with Kale and Lyra toward the station's central hub. "The Navorians miscalculated," Eva observed. "They assumed your reaction to our physiological response would be the end of the interaction, that you wouldn't look beyond your initial fear to see our actual behavior. A reasonable assumption, given historical precedent," Kale acknowledged. "Our species has evolved specific neurological recognition patterns for predatory cues. When activated, they typically override higher cognitive functions. And yet they didn't," Eva pointed out. "You maintained enough rational control to observe the discrepancy between our biological state and our actions." Kale seemed to consider this carefully before responding. "Perhaps because the context was unexpected. Our cultural understanding of human predatory responses is primarily associated with aggression and violence. To see such responses activated in service of healing and protection created a cognitive dissonance that demanded resolution. Scientific curiosity overriding evolutionary fear," Lyra suggested. "An interesting adaptation in itself." They reached the central hub, where repair work on the damaged sections was already underway. Through the vast observation windows, the azure surface of Xylos gleamed below, clouds swirling in delicate patterns across its atmosphere. "What happens now?" Eva asked, gazing at the planet. The The Navorian plot failed, but the fears they tried to exploit remain. The Xylosian High Council has authorized continuation of the Joint Research Program, Lyra informed her. With enhanced security protocols, of course, and with an additional focus on comparative crisis response physiology. Eva turned to her in surprise. They're expanding the research scope? After all this, knowledge is our preferred response to fear, Lyra explained. If human, physiological responses can be better understood in their proper context, perhaps they will become less concerning to my people. Kale, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. The security briefing for Xylosian personnel regarding human biology is being revised. The section on pupillary dilation and other crisis responses will now include context about protective behaviors, not merely aggressive potential. Eva recognized the significance of this seemingly small administrative change. That's substantial progress. It is a beginning, Kale corrected, his tone formal but lacking its earlier rigidity. Cultural and evolutionary perceptions do not change quickly, but accurate information is a necessary foundation. As they parted ways, Eva found herself reflecting on the strange alchemy of crisis, how an attempt to deepen division had instead created the first real opportunity for understanding. The incident would not erase millennia of evolutionary caution or cultural misconceptions, but it had created a crack in the wall of assumptions that had long separated their species. Back aboard the Odyssey, Eva stood in her quarters, gazing at the stars beyond her viewport. Her uniform, once feeling like an ill-fitting second skin, now seemed to fit differently. Not more comfortably, perhaps, but more meaningfully. It represented not just humanity's conditional acceptance into galactic society, but the ongoing work of building true understanding across the vast biological and cultural differences that both separated and enriched the various species of the galactic concord. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Lieutenant Patel appeared, datapad in hand. "Captain, we've received new orders from Terran Alliance Command. In light of recent events, they've authorized an extended mission at Xylos Station. The Odyssey is to remain as the permanent human presence for the expanded research initiative." Eva accepted the datapad, reviewing the details with a sense of cautious optimism. It seems some good has come from this crisis after all. "There's more, Captain. The Xylosian High Council has specifically requested that you serve as the human liaison for a new cross-species understanding initiative." Apparently, Commander Kale submitted a formal recommendation. Eva couldn't hide her surprise. "Kale recommended me personally?" "Yes, Captain." His exact words were. Patel consulted his notes. "Captain Rostova has demonstrated the capacity to maintain rational function even when her biology suggests otherwise, a quality we had previously believed unique to Xylosians." Eva laughed softly. High praise indeed, coming from him. "There's a personal message as well," Patel added, seeming slightly confused. "It simply says, dilated pupils can mean many things. We will learn together." Eva smiled, understanding the significance of this seemingly cryptic message. It represented Kale's acknowledgement that his own understanding had been limited by preconception, that the same biological response he had feared could have multiple meanings and purposes. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Inform Command that I accept the assignment." After Patel left, Eva returned to the viewport, watching as the Odyssey maintained its orbit around Xylos. The Joint Research Station gleamed in the distance, a symbol of cooperation that had survived its first serious test. Somewhere below, Xylosians were learning the human physiology, with all its predatory heritage and crisis adaptations, could serve purposes beyond the violence they had feared. And humans were learning that understanding required more than treaties and protocols. It required the willingness to see beyond evolutionary fear to the possibilities that lay beyond. Eva touched her collar, no longer feeling the stiffness that had bothered her before. The uniform had not changed, but her relationship to what it represented had. It was no longer merely a symbol of conditional acceptance, but a reminder of the work still to be done. The bridge building between species separated by biology, but united by curiosity and, perhaps someday, by trust.